We've been a little bit spoiled as 49ers fans lately, having not been through a season where we have a few weeks left in the regular season, but nothing to play for. It's kind of been a little bit, I don't know, I guess shocking to me the last couple of weeks or last couple of days, especially sitting here thinking about where we were at the beginning of the season, looking to this game coming up on Monday against Detroit and thinking that that game could potentially determine the one seed in the NFC or could at least have some implications for us moving forward, and then have the reality set in that this game means absolutely nothing other than bragging rights. Uh, so it's kind of an interesting time to be a 49ers fan right now. There's going to be a lot of time this offseason to debate Kyle, to debate Purdy, to debate the draft, to debate free agency, um, what players we should keep, what players we should let go, what players we should trade. There's a lot that hinges on this offseason. I think this is a very, very important offseason for the 49ers moving forward. No matter which way the organization decides to go with this, it's going to be kind of setting the tone for the next few years, I believe. I don't believe that we just play this offseason out and the next offseason we start over, or this offseason is kind of going to set the tone based on how we draft because of where we're going to draft, what we do with Kyle, what we going to do with Purdy, no matter what happens next offseason. So I think that it's real interesting, um, somewhat depressing, but also somewhat exciting all at the same time. So we'll talk about that and more next.
Yo, it's time to grind. With Brian on the mic, content is one of a kind. Now, welcome to my show, the BS Report, where we let the truth flow. We're breaking down the stories, shining light on the games. No fake news here, just hot takes blowing flames. The BS Report, yeah, we're keeping it tight. Bringing you the news, making it ignite. Tune in, turn it up, feel the heat rise. With Brian in the house, our takes won't be compromised. From the latest news to the hottest debates, in the BS Report, we're setting the stakes. So come along, join the ride, where Brian and his subscribers are full of Niner pride. Yo,
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the BS Report. I am your host, Brian. First, I would like to say that I hope everybody had a great Christmas. I wish everybody a happy new year. I hope that your holidays were all filled with love and laughter and joy. Um, Even though our 49ers have not given us much to be joyful about this season, it's just football. And at the end of the day, hopefully everybody out there is enjoying family and friends and just life and feeling blessed. So back to this 49ers team. Man, I don't even know where to begin on the range of emotions I feel in regards to this team. It's been a whirlwind season, to say the least, from expectations going into the season to feeling a little bit misled about injuries on the team to having optimism that Brock could take a step forward and be the quarterback of the future, and then being, in my opinion, slapped in the face with the fact that he's not. Um, and also still having hope that maybe Kyle could turn a page and become a coach that, frankly, he hasn't been in regards to just being open to evolving and being open to working his team around the players that he has, as opposed to trying to conform the players that he has to his scheme. And I think that this offseason is going to be huge in so many ways because, I know a lot of people are saying that if Kyle has another season like this season, next season he will be fired. And that's all well and good. You know, People are saying that maybe they're going to give Brock a middle of the road contract and with an out after 2 or 3 years, and that's all well and good. Fine. But here's the thing. This season, this off season is kind of going to set the tone for the next few years going forward. This off season is where they're going to set the foundation of what this team is going to be in the near future. If they keep Kyle and give him one more year and say, we're going to let you play it out with these players, okay, that's fine. But what decision does he make knowing what decisions does he make knowing that, he's got to do something? Does that mean he's going to be a little bit more reckless thinking, who cares? Um, is he going to draft building blocks for this team, or is he going to draft somebody that he thinks is going to help him win next season, even if it's not something that would be a long-term benefit to this team? Something like Ricky Pearsall, who maybe is a little bit more polished, got a lot of experience, ready to come in, but the upside's not there. He's ready to play. We've seen that he got pretty much no training camp. He got no off season. He got shot. He didn't get a lot of practice. He was on, injured reserve. And then he comes back and he's able to get right in there. Now, he hasn't been overly productive. I think that is as much a issue with Kyle and his coaching practices than as it is Purdy and his ability. So, Pearsall showed that he was ready to go right away. So with that being said, is Kyle going to do something like that again? Is he going to take somebody that he believes can come in and contribute day one at a high level, but he has that high floor, but also has a lower ceiling? Or is he going to actually maybe take somebody that maybe the floor isn't as high, but the ceiling is much higher, and something that can be a foundational piece and a building block for the future, and that same mentality going throughout the whole entire draft. When they do re-signings and contracts this offseason, free agency and with their own players, are they going to re-sign players with the intention of running it back, with making another run next year to the Super Bowl, which in my opinion would be foolish, because there's no way that this 49ers team is competing for a Super Bowl next year. The one thing that I think 49er fans need to be just open-eyed about is that you can't go into next season with blinders on. We have to understand where this team stands. That's my main issue with keeping Kyle for another year and letting him run it out, is because is he going to make decisions trying to save his job? Decisions that are going to put this team behind the 8 ball going forward. That's always the problem when you have quote unquote lame duck coaches. And from a contract standpoint, Kyle's not a lame duck coach, but maybe he's feeling that pressure. We don't know what's being said to him behind closed doors with Jed. So, or Denise and John. We don't know what pressure is being put on Kyle, or what pressure will be put on Kyle at the start of the offseason. Because just like the players have, exit interviews and exit meetings with the coaches and the front office, Kyle and John have the same type of meetings with Jed and possibly Denise and John as well. So, that's the thing that I'm the most curious about. I'm the most curious to see what type of position is Kyle and John going to put this team in, not just for next year, but for the years to come after that. Because I think a lot is going to be said about how they construct this team this offseason, because it's gonna show a lot about where John and Kyle are in they're standing with ownership of this team. Because I know, or at least I don't believe, that Kyle and John are stupid. I don't believe that they're dumb. Excuse me. I don't believe that they can look at this team and think that they're the caliber of team that is ready to win a Super Bowl. I believe that they look at this team and believe that they're the caliber of team that can, let's say, compete at a high level, that can be a playoff team, but they're not the type of team that's going to go in there and win a Super Bowl. And I think they know that with the aging players, with the way that Debo performed, there's a lot of old, slow players on this team that need to be replaced. And in the short term, the extreme short term, meaning just next season, and even and probably not even the whole season, just the beginning part of the season. That could be something that holds the Niners back a little bit. Getting rid of guys like Debo, Ayuk's not going to be ready, you know, limiting CMC. We don't know what's going to happen with Trent, where his mind is at as far as his future. But getting rid of these aging players and bringing in young guys. The beginning of the year might start off slow, but in the long run, it could be something that's beneficial, not just for next season, but going forward. So, and I truly believe that Kyle and John can see that. I truly believe that they can see that. And do they feel like they can withstand a slow start? Because I'll tell you what, regardless of what they're told this offseason by ownership, if they start off the year, 2-6, 2-4, 2-5, they're going to feel heat. If not from ownership, they're going to feel it from fans. They're going to feel it from content creators. They're going to feel it from mainstream media. They're going to feel the heat, regardless of what decisions they make, whether they decide to run it, especially if they decide to run it back with the same older guys. But even if they do go younger, because of the way this season went, they're going to feel heat if they start off slow. But if Jed has given them assurances that, you know what, you guys don't worry about it, you're safe, your jobs are safe, you're not going anywhere, then it doesn't matter what guys like me, guys like other content creators, what other fans, what other media members say, because they got the assurance from ownership. So I would say that if they're able to do that, if they replace the older guys with a lot of young guys and they start off slow, then I guess that would tell me that they got some assurances from ownership that they're okay. But if they go into this offseason and they bring back everybody, they stick with Sorensen, they, stick with Debo, stick with Trent, Kyle comes out, runs CMC into the ground, they give Greenlaw this massive contract. If they do all these things, that tells me that Jed said, you better win or else. Because that's basically sabotaging the team for the future. And if Kyle thinks that he's got to do something special next season, then he's going to go with what's familiar to him. And that's those players. So I think it's going to be real interesting to see right from Jump Street, how are they going to handle this offseason? Are they going to go off right off the bat January 6th and hand Brock Purdy 60 mil, 55 mil? A massive $300 million 5-year contract right as soon as they're able to? Because to me, that's going to say a lot. It's going to say a lot about where Kyle and John believe their security lies. Because if now I could be way off on this, but the way I look at it is, if they feel like they have security in their jobs, Why would they rush to get that done right away? Considering all the other contracts they've handed out, you know, they've slow played it. Now, I'm not saying to take it into training camp. I'm not saying that at all. But they've slow played all these other contracts. This is the biggest one that's coming up. This is about to be the potentially the biggest contract in the history of the NFL. Definitely the biggest contract in the history of the 49ers. Why, if they felt security, would they go jump into that contract immediately? Because John might be 100% behind Purdy. John might fully believe in him because you know what? At the end of the day, John's a front office guy and Brock Purdy was a front office pick. He just was. I don't believe Kyle had anything to do with that pick. So John might be right there ready to give him the contract. I have a feeling Kyle's not. I have a feeling Kyle's a little bit. You got to remember, Kyle is probably the most egotistical, I guess you could say, but I don't know. He's probably the coach in the NFL that believes that he's the reason why the 49ers have been what they've been for the last 4 or 5 years. Not because the talent got them there, but it's because he got them there. And so I don't know. I just have this feeling that I think that Kyle believes that he can do with most quarterbacks what he's done with Brock. And maybe not exactly the same, but he can get a similar level of production out of many quarterbacks that he's gotten out of Brock. And to be honest with you, I don't think he's wrong. I really don't. When you look at it, when you really, really look at it, and you put, you take your 49ers colored glasses off and you just look at it from the outside and you look about what Brock has done. Brock has done a couple of things special prior to this year. But Brock doesn't have talent that transcends a game. He doesn't have elite arm. He doesn't have elite size. He doesn't have elite athleticism or elite speed. He's just okay in all those areas. What Brock has done at an elite level is process. Throw with anticipation. Know where he needs to go with the ball and get it there timely and accurately. Well, this year he hasn't even done that. This year he has been, to say an average quarterback, I believe, is being nice. And so would you honestly tell me that Kyle thinks that he couldn't get that out of many quarterbacks? You really think that Kyle's ready to give that $60 million a year? Even 50? I personally don't even believe that Kyle's ready to give that $40 million a year. Why would he do that when he feels like he can go get, I don't know, someone like Sam Darnold? Not saying Sam Darnold, but somebody like him for less than 10. And then be able to build a roster around him. And again, I don't believe Kyle would be wrong for feeling that way. Because I don't believe, especially if Purdy's going to play the way that he's playing now. You can't blame all of the things that Purdy's gone through this year on a poor offensive line, because especially in pass blocking, they haven't been horrible. Aside from the last game, they against Miami, they haven't been horrible. He's had time. I'm not saying that the Niners have had an elite offensive line, but it's been good enough. He should be able to do more than he's done. What does the offensive line have to do with some of the dumb decisions he's made? What does the offensive line have to do with him not taking checkdowns? What does the offensive line have to do with some of the sacks that he's walked into? What does the offensive line have to do with the fact that he's floated balls? You know what I'm saying? So That doesn't, and I know Kyle can see that. So what would make you think that Kyle is ready to hand a basically average quarterback 55 to 65 million dollars a year? I don't believe he is, and I don't think he would be wrong for thinking that way. Um, a guy who I am super intrigued by, and I honestly would love to see what Kyle could do with a guy like him, is Zach Wilson. I really, really, really would like to see the 49ers pick him up in free agency, because I honestly believe if it was a fair competition, he could beat out Purdy. You know, he may not be the processor that Purdy is when Purdy's at his best. He may not have the anticipatory throwing that Purdy has when Purdy's at his best. But that wasn't Purdy this year. And I don't have anything that leads me to believe that the 49ers next season are going to have weapons that were far and away better than the weapons they had this season. They don't have the ability, the financial ability to upgrade the team in that way. Where they need to put the money that they do have is into Brock and into the offensive and defensive line. And like I said, when it comes to pass protection, this offensive line gave Purdy enough time for the most part this season. Look it up. Go look at the numbers. I'm not talking about the last couple of weeks when the whole offensive line has just been decimated. We're down to what, our third or fourth string offense, or left tackle. You know, we're going into our third string left guard. We've been, just ravaged by injuries lately. But the whole beginning part of the season, that wasn't the case. The offensive line was basically intact. And they gave Purdy opportunities. I'm not saying that they were a top 5 on the offensive line, but they weren't a bottom 5 either. So with that being said, they're not going to be able to dump a lot of money into weapons. They might put some draft, and I don't see them going and spending a lot of money on a right tackle. They're either going to draft one or they're going to come back with McKivitz. That's what's going to happen. So, and that might be an upgrade. They might upgrade, the left guard position, because Banks will probably, although I don't know, with this injury, who knows what's going to happen. They might upgrade the center position. And I'm not saying that these upgrades won't make a difference. But it's not like all of a sudden Purdy's going to be able to camp out, throw a chair back, pitch an umbrella, and kick back and drink mixed drinks back there. He's going to have to get rid of the ball. And he's going to have to make the right decisions when he does it. So everybody's using the excuse this year that his guys aren't getting separation. His guys aren't getting open. Okay, well, if that's the case, how's that going to change next year? Who's coming next year to make that different? Because Ayuk's not going to be here to start the season. Okay, Debo's not all of a sudden going to get better at route running. Debo's not all of a sudden going to be able to beat man coverage. He's just not. Pearsall might improve a little bit, but is Pearsall going to get next year to where Brandon Ayuk was last year? No. It's not going to happen. Juwan is just going to be what Juwan is. So, what's going to McCaffrey? Are you really counting on Christian McCaffrey to come in here and save this? If that's what you're counting on, then you're living with your head in the clouds, because that's not going to happen. So the only hope that there would be for the weapons to maintain, to stay what they've been this year, and for the Niners to take a big leap forward offensively, would be for Kyle to change his entire scheme. For Kyle to change the way he thinks about offense. We all know that's not happening. So, what is to lead us to believe that Purdy next season is going to be better than he was this season? What leads us to believe that Purdy is going to go back to being 2023 Purdy? I don't think there's any evidence that supports that theory. So, with Purdy playing at the level he played this year, I truly believe that a guy like Zach Wilson could push him, if not take his job, because I can tell you one thing. Zach Wilson's got a little bit more prototypical quarterback size. He's about an inch to 2 inches taller. He's only about 5 pounds less, but he's got a much bigger arm. He's got way more physical traits than Purdy has. And you can't say that Purdy's a better processor. You can't say that Purdy throws with more anticipation, is more accurate, because this is a what have you done for me lately league. And lately, Purdy has shown that he's none of those things. And excuse me, man, I believe that when you're playing with the type of talent limitations that this offensive has right now, because I'm sorry, the way that this roster is currently constructed, and with the blunders that the front office has done with contract extensions, we are playing with a bit of an offensive deficit on this team as far as talent goes. Because Debo's old, CMC's old, Kittle's getting old, Trent is old. All these guys are banged up all the time. Purdy is undersized and weak-armed. So, besides Pooney, our offensive line is trash. Ayuk is hurt. Pearsall's limited. So, you tell me, when you're putting out a team of okay role players on offense, which is what most of them are at this point, besides Kittle. Kittle is still a superstar tight end. I'm sorry, CMC is not still an elite superstar running back. He's not. He's not going to be that again. I hope I'm wrong, and if I am, I will eat crow. I will get on here and say I was wrong. I have no problem with that. I don't believe I am. Trent, every year, is getting a little worse. He's getting old. How can you blame the guy? So, I think the only elite offensive player we have on this team is Kittle. That's it. The rest of these guys are in the twilight of their career. They're okay. Either that or they're severely lacking in the traits that is required to be an elite player. Purdy is not an elite quarterback. So when you're dealing with talent deficits on the offensive side of the ball, how do you overcome that? You overcome that with a quarterback who's got elite traits. That's your only chance. Because in order to take an average quarterback and make him elite, you need to have elite weapons. So this team, as it's constructed, cannot make Purdy into 2023 Purdy again, because he's not that guy. So the only thing we can do is try to find a quarterback that's got the talent to uplift the average talent around him, and hope that we have a coach that can teach him the right way to play quarterback. See, I believe that the hope for this team going forward is for Kyle to actually be able to coach up a quarterback with talent. Not coach up, not take a quarterback that has minimal talent and make him good, but take a good quarterback that has excellent talent and make him great. That's where Kyle needs to go. If Kyle wants to evolve and take that next step as a great head coach, he needs to quit taking these average quarterbacks and making them very good. and start taking these good quarterbacks and making them great. Because those great quarterbacks can take average players around them and make the team great. And that's what I believe a guy like a Zach Wilson has. I think he's got good talent, great talent. Where Kyle needs to step in is he needs to take that talent and mold his mind and teach him to be a great quarterback. I'm not saying he can do it. I'm not saying that Zach Wilson has it in him. I don't know. I have no idea. But I think Zach Wilson has an opportunity to become a great quarterback more than Purdy does on this team as it's currently constructed with the type of money that Zach Wilson will make. Because here's the other thing is at least for a year or two, let's say you gave Zach Wilson a 2-year or 3-year deal. You could probably give Zach Wilson a 2-year, $25 million contract. Total. 12.5 a year. And then build the team up around him. Because if you do that, now you can afford to go out and grab another offensive weapon. You can afford to do things offensively to bolster this team around him, to give him the same type of, maybe not exactly the amount of all-pro players that Purdy had around him, but enough. So then you would combine that with the elite traits that Zach Wilson does have. And for all you people out there that truly believe that Kyle is this great coach, then there's his opportunity to prove it. Take a quarterback that's got excellent traits, who's had a hard time, that's been bounced around a little bit, had his confidence shaken, and make him great. Make him what he should have been when he was drafted second overall. Do with him what the Jets couldn't do. If you're a great quarterback, let's see you do it. Because had he been there at number 3, he would have been taken instead of Trey Lance. So I truly believe that. So that would be what my ideal situation would be. And I'm not even saying to let Purdy go. Keep them both. Let them compete. Just don't pay Purdy. You don't have to. And if he wants to get mad and he wants to hold out, well, then you've got Zach Wilson. But maybe the competition will bring the best out of Purdy. It seems to. So that would be my ideal situation. Keep them both. Bring them both back. Or bring Purdy back and bring Wilson in. Let's see what he can do. But I think it has to be somebody like that. It can't be somebody like Kirk Cousins. Yeah, Kirk Cousins might push him a little bit, but what does that accomplish? What does it really accomplish? Because you know what? At the end of the day, with or without Kirk Cousins, this team is not competing for a Super Bowl. So if you're not competing for a Super Bowl, what are you doing, really? That's the end game. That's the object of all of this, is to bring that trophy home. So if you're not competing for it, you're building towards it. So this team needs to be making moves with that in mind. Either we're going to compete for it this year and they need to be real, or we're building towards that. And bringing in a guy like Kirk Cousins accomplishes neither of those goals. So, and in my opinion, neither does bringing in a guy like Sam Darnold, because you know what? He's not bringing Justin Jefferson with him, and he's not bringing Jordan Addison with him. He's not bringing that offensive line with him, and he's not bringing Kevin O'Connell with him. So you're going to see real fast who Sam Darnold really is, and I think that should scare the shit out of everybody. Bringing in a guy like Carson Wentz would be fine. It would be great if this team was ready to win next year, but they're not. So what does that accomplish? What is he, like 33, 34? He's at least 31. He's not the quarterback of the future. This team's not ready to win. So why? It doesn't make any sense. Mac Jones, I don't know. I don't like him. I think he's kind of a punk. I don't I don't know. There's something about him that just makes me think that he wouldn't be a good fit on this team. I don't think he would be well received. Put it like that. I think he's kind of a self-absorbed kind of, I don't know. He just doesn't seem very coachable. He just gives that vibe. So I would say, I mean, I guess he would be somebody that you could build towards the future with, but uh, I'm not real high on that. Justin Fields, I think Kyle would get hurt. You know, if he would play Justin Fields like he should have played Trey Lance, then maybe. But I don't think Kyle would do that. I think Kyle would definitely get him hurt. So I don't know that that would be the greatest. Same thing with Russell Wilson. What does that accomplish? You know, this team. Now, here's the thing with Russ though. He could potentially for a season or two, probably just one. He could probably lift this team up a little bit because he comes in with some cachet. He comes in, you know, and he demands immediate respect because he has accomplished some things in this league. You know, he's won a Super Bowl. So, you know, and he's definitely an upgrade over Purdy at this point. Again, for maybe a season. So, you know, he would probably lift this team into playoff contention. But he's not taking them to a Super Bowl as they're currently constructed. It's not happening. And one draft, you know, let's say we have 9 picks in this draft and we hit on 6 of them. That would be a great draft. Not going to happen probably, but let's say we do. That's still not lifting this team into Super Bowl contention. It's going to take 2 of those drafts probably. At least at minimum. One's not going to do it. So even a guy like Russ, you know, this season maybe, next season no. It's just not it's not anything that I think is going to make a huge difference. So there's not a lot of quarterbacks out there as far as free agents go currently in the NFL that are available that would be something that would bring excitement to me. You know, personally, if it came down to bringing in someone like Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson or Sam Darnold or Carson Wentz or Ryan Tannehill or, you know, any of these quarterbacks that are, I mean, Daniel Jones, all these guys out there, Justin Fields, I just don't think that the upside is there. The only one I see out there that has real upside that I'm really intrigued by is Zach Wilson. But when it comes to the other guys, you know who I'd honestly rather see them bring it now? It'll never happen because the Niners would never do it, and it'll never happen because I don't think he would ever do it. I would rather them bring Trey Lance back than see those other guys. In fact, I think it'd be kind of funny if Jed said, you know what? You spent 3 first-round picks on him. You gave him away for a 4th-round pick. You never gave him a chance. You got him hurt. Go get him and bring him back. If you can turn him back into something, you know what? You've got your job security. That would be hilarious. That would be so funny if Jed did that. You know, you F that up, you go fix it. You cost me all those assets. Well, I want him back. Oh, that would be classic. It's not going to happen. And Trey would probably tell Kyle to stick it somewhere, and rightfully so. But I think that would be hilarious. And I honestly, truthfully though, all jokes aside, I would rather that than like Kirk Cousins or any of those other guys that I named. I truly would, because at least that would be exciting. At least that would be like, okay, maybe you can find something here. Maybe you strike lightning in a bottle. Maybe, you know, I don't know. It's just at the very least, it would be entertaining. So there's nothing entertaining about watching Kirk Cousins with his happy feet scared for his life behind this below average offensive line. So, you know, I would say that, in my opinion, the best thing to do would be not to offer Purdy a big contract. Do I think that's going to happen? No, I don't. I think they're going to offer him a big contract. But I think the best thing to do is for them not to. Maybe you want to give him a little raise. You want to bump him up, give him a 1 year, a 1 year, $18 million contract, $20 million contract. Fine, whatever, just to make it a little bit better because of what he played on. Isn't that sort of similar what they did with Jordan Love in Green Bay? So, and then they paid him, okay, he bet on himself and he won. So, do the same thing to Purdy. Make him earn it, make him prove it. And then bring in someone like Zach Wilson, specifically Zach Wilson, not someone like him. Bring him in here. He's got upside. He's got potential, untapped potential. And everybody swears that Kyle's this guru. Kyle's this genius, smart coach that can bring out the best in these players. So let him show it. Here we go. And then lastly, just don't do anything stupid. Quit kicking the can down the road with these horrible contracts. Quit doing that. Let these guys play out their contracts, and if you can get out from under them, do it. Even if you have to take a cap hit, do it. Because this team is not gonna win. Not like this. They got to start changing the way that they do things. What is the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Well, how many times are we going to run this shit back and expect it to work? It doesn't. And it's not going to work now that everybody's older and slower. So wholesale changes need to be made. And as much as I like Purdy, man, as much as I root for the guy on a personal level, we can't pay him. We can't give him $50 to $65 million a year. And we can't even give him $45 million a year for more than a year or two. It's just dumb. It is so dumb. I hear certain media people, ex-players, even content creators saying, excuse me, they're saying that if you're going to pay Tua and you're going to pay guys like Jalen Hurts and Trevor Lawrence and Daniel Jones, these $50 million a year, near $50 million Deshaun Watson contracts, then you have to pay Purdy. No, you don't. That is the most cockamamie dumb shit I've ever heard in my life. That is so dumb. Just because those other teams made stupid decisions doesn't mean you have to do that too. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And I keep hearing that over and over and over again. Well, Tua got it, and Purdy's at least as good as Tua. So who cares? That doesn't make any sense. Because Tua is not as good as Purdy and he got $50 million, that means that we have to do the same dumb shit that the Dolphins did and give Purdy 50. No. That's why the Dolphins don't have Super Bowl wins and the Niners do, because we historically don't do dumb shit like that. And ever since we started doing dumb shit like that, we haven't won any Super Bowls. So stop doing dumb shit. Like, it's not rocket science, guys. Like, do you have an elite quarterback? Yes, pay him. If you don't pay him and keep looking for one. Like, how hard is this? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to keep doing the dumb crap that all these other teams do that don't win nothing. You look at the Chiefs. They paid their quarterback, but he's the best quarterback in the NFL, 2 at worst. But did they go off and give their wide receiver $30 million a year? No, they were like, that's stupid. We're not going to do that. So look at the teams that won or the teams that win. Everybody keeps saying, well, the Eagles gave Jalen Hurts, $50 million a year, and they were able to maintain and hold their. Did they, though? Did they give Jalen Hurts $50 million a year, or is that just candy? No, they didn't give him $50 million. Go look at the contract. They didn't. They will be out of that contract before they owe him that much. And as far as I understand, Purdy's agent is saying that he's not going to accept that type of a contract. Now, I might be wrong. Maybe I misunderstood what his agent said, but if that's the case, now, if you can get Purdy on a similar contract, if you can give Purdy Jalen Hurts exact contract, fine. Sign me up. I'll take it. But keep looking for the quarterback because you're still not going to win. Keep looking. Because just like Jalen Hurts is not an elite quarterback, neither is Brock Purdy. So if you can give Purdy Hurts exact contract, I'm fine with that. I'm fine like that. It can look like $50 million all it wants to. It's not. Go look at the contract. So, by the time all these big money contracts hit that they've signed, by the time all that money hits, they'll be able to get out from Hurts' contract with a minimal cap hit. Go look at it. So I hear Larry say all the time, well, and I'm not trying to talk shit on Larry. I'm not trying to anything like that. I like Larry. Okay. But he's always saying the Eagles did it, so the Niners can do it. No, they didn't. They didn't. And just from what I'm gathering, it doesn't seem like Purdy's agent is going to accept that type of a contract. Not to that degree. So this argument of, well, they paid Trevor, they played Tua, they paid Jordan Love, they did that. No, stop. That's dumb. What do you say? I know most of you out there are fathers or mothers, and you're parents. And your kids come to you and they're like, why did this dumb thing? Because they did it. I don't give a shit what they did. My mom used to tell me when I was a kid, my best friend when I was younger, his name was Pablo. And my other friend was Jesse. And my mom would tell me, well, if Pablo and Jesse went and jumped off a bridge, would you do it too? That's stupid. Just because they're doing dumb shit doesn't mean you got to do it. And so just because the Dolphins paid Tua, just because the Eagles paid Jalen, just because the Jaguars paid Trevor, doesn't mean that you have to make the same dumb decisions. This whole, well, it's the next quarterback that comes due. No. That is so stupid. And if that is really the way that ownership hires their general managers, then somebody really needs to go in there and have some sort of a symposium for all these owners and teach them how to hire people, because that's the dumbest way of doing business that I've ever heard in my life. The reason why these quarterbacks get signed to these big contracts is because they're just good enough. These quarterbacks are just good enough to keep the team winning. And for most organizations, having a winning record is good enough. Making the playoffs is good enough. Well, you know what? This is not most organizations. This is the San Francisco freaking 49ers. And making the playoffs and winning regular season games is not good enough. So those guys can go sign their Tuas and their Trevor Lawrences and their Jalen Hurts, because as long as they make it to the playoffs, as long as they compete season in and season out, they're fine. Their fan bases are usually fine. That is not the case here. Because I'll tell you what, if you sign Purdy to a $50 to $65 million a year contract, and this team goes the next 5 years and doesn't sniff a Super Bowl, let alone win it, doesn't even sniff it, you're going to have an uproar of pissed off fans like this league has never seen before. Because that's the dumbest shit. That's the biggest dumbass decision that this freaking team will have ever made. And I'm sorry, I don't mean that as a disrespect to Purdy, because I like Purdy. But just because I like him doesn't mean that I'm willing to be stupid. And that would be a very dumb thing to do. And I don't give a damn that other teams are out there doing dumb stuff. This team doesn't need to do dumb stuff because the standard isn't winning enough. The standard is winning it all. Period. End of story. That's the 49er way. And if the standards have dropped with this team, then they need to get rid of everybody, including Jed. If his standard is dropped, then Denise and Papa York need to open their eyes and be like, that's not acceptable, or they need to sell the damn something. We are not gonna stand for this standard lowering to the level of Tua and Trevor Lawrence. Like, that's not okay. So miss me with all that BS about, well, the Dolphins did it. And, well, the Eagles did it with Jalen and they still were able to keep. No, quit. Just stop. We need to get the guy. And we don't need to stop until we find him. Or else they need to keep Purdy on a good enough contract to load up the team around him for the next 5 years. And then they need to either get Kyle across the finish line or find a damn coach that can. Because I'm sorry, I'm not lowering my standards. And I've been a 49ers fan long enough to see what true greatness is about. And making it to an NFC championship game and winning an NFC championship game is not it. Making it to the Super Bowl is not it. It's winning that damn game. And then the next year, doing everything you can to do it again. That's what it means to be a 49er fan. And I want no part of these other shit show organizations did it. I don't want any part of that. Because you know what happens when you start to lower your standards? You turn into the Cowboys. And I'm sorry, my brother's a Cowboys fan. My nephews are Cowboys fans. You know, every year is going to be their year. Well, my brother doesn't say that. My brother's a realist Cowboys fan. There's probably no fan in the world that thinks the Cowboys are a bigger shit show than my brother does, to be truthful with you. But he's still a Cowboys fan. And to me, Jerry talks a big game, that they're all about winning, but he doesn't act like it because he makes the dumbest, stupidest decisions you can make as well. If he really wanted to win, he'd go sit his ass up in his skybox, hire someone to run football operations, and back the hell out of it. But he doesn't want to win. He wants to be the spotlight. He wants to be the show. He wants to sell tickets. That's what he wants to do. He wants to be America's team. No, fine. You go have that. You go do that. You go be America's team. You go build your fancy stadium and sell all the tickets you want and blow all the dumb money on this stupid ass players that you do and be mediocre for the next 30 years. Good. You do that. I don't want that for this team. That's what happens when that's what matters. You turn into that. So this team, Jed needs to take a hard look in the mirror before he signs off on a $50 to $65 million a year contract for Brock Purdy. And he needs to decide, does he want to be the Cowboys or does he want to be the Chiefs? Which team does he want to be? And once he does that, hopefully he makes the right decision. This team could probably go down the right path because I don't think that we've effed it up too bad yet. But as soon as they put pen to paper on that stupid contract, they will. At least for the duration of that contract. So anyhow, guys, that's my rant for today. Sorry it was been so long since my last video. I will not be gone that long this time. For all of you that have watched and subscribed and liked and commented on my videos, thank you, and I will see you all next time.